This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we're in.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we'll start with the other master data. Any question till now?
Yeah, we're in one thing. So as part of the practice, I mean, is it necessary? It's necessary for us to create an ECC org structure, right?
You can reuse an existing, right? Means that will be done by your ECC team, not by you. But if you know SD and all, you can create your own organizational structure.
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
So the same org structure would be getting reflected in TM as well, right? So while creating the sales organization or sales office or something.
No, no, no. I showed you, na. We have your unique organizational structure, right? You can
Yeah,
refer to
right.
that in the BSG org unit, but you have to create your own org structure in SD, in TM.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so now the important master data what we'll see is the resource. Okay, so resources actually play a very central role in your planning and the execution, and are required to physically transport the goods from or within your transportation network, so that at your source and destination the respective loading and unloading can be done. Okay, so there can be different types of resources in the system. One, it can be a vehicle resource. Vehicle resource means mainly it can be truck, trailer, locomotive, rail car. These are what we call as a vehicle resource. We can also have TU resource. TU resource means like containers or unit load device, what we call as TU resource. We can also have a resource called as a driver. Driver means the person who really drives the car. They are also a resource. So that means they generally operate by trucks, or they okay. So this driver, if we're considering him as a resource, they combine the properties of a business partner as well, because to create a driver in the system, you also need to create them as a business partner. Okay. Then we have certain other resource types called as a calendar resource, handling resource. Okay. So this will come into details later on, but a major objective is to play around with the resource concept. Now, before you come into resource, you have to know two things. What is a mode of transport and another is a means of transport. Okay. So if I go to the configuration, first of all.
And we're in one thing, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is, right, so as you said in the previous sessions, like shipper shipper scenario. So shipper is something which the ECC would be
Yes.
looking into it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So while when the shipper is actually responsible for the manufacturing of the goods, or else transportation of the goods. He won't be doing transportation, but then at least he will be creating a delivery. So my ask is like, if we create a sales organization or distribution channel or something, a division from the shipper point of view, so how it would be integrated with TM, and wherein we actually have the sales org in the TM. So how different the sales org of shipper is different from the sales org of TM. I just
Yeah. So if you recollect, I told you sales org is not required for a shipper scenario. It is only required for an LSP scenario. Okay. Because as a LSP means, yeah, uh, it's not required for a shipper, because sales organization means when you want to sell something, and selling comes only when you work as an LSP, because as an LSP, I want to implement TM. I want to control what are the services I'm selling to my customer, and that I want to track and trace in my SAP team. Okay.
Yes.
The second thing, uh, yeah, and second thing is that I need like whatever sales organization distribution channel you create in ECC. If you recollect, you can just link them in your PPOCE or PPOME in the BSG org unit. That field is actually used for correlating your ECC organization structure to your TM organization structure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
If you don't want to link it, that is also okay. But this is just a linkage or identifier. That means this is my sales organization I had in ECC, and that is this what I am having here.
Yeah, sure. I got it. Yeah, thank you.
So first part is a mode of transport. So if you see here, if I go to transport management, under transport management, I go to master data. Under master data, I go to resource, and under resource, I go to, no, sorry, not resource. First of all, I need to go to transport network. I go to lane. Under lane, I go to mode, transport mode, because this transport mode and this means of transport are interrelated to each other. So what is a mode of transport? So mode of transport means it defines which mode is used for transportation. That means whether you are using road, rail, sea, and air, this postal service, inland waterway. So these are the different means by which your transportation process is to be executed. That is what we call as a mode of transport. Okay. So if you see here some of the different, so generally we use the standard ones. If you want to create your own one, you can create in copy as and just create as G1. Okay. So what are the important elements you have in your mode of transport? So first of all, you need, if you see here, every mode of transport have a description, and this is the category. So this category will actually help you to know whether the mode of transport which we are using is for road or rail or sea or air. Okay. And then here you have a checkbox called as a main carriage. So main carriage means so mainly the main carriage is used for the the bigger part of your transport, right? So in case you are moving your transport from truck, then by truck, if you are going to use a sea or an ocean as a main medium, as a main carriage, then the sea on the ocean will be your main carriage. So generally, suppose if I go to sea, see this main carriage will be tick marked. Okay. This DG mode category means what? This DG mode category, this parameter actually defines the dangerous mode of transport category. Okay. That is, if you are transporting your dangerous goods, what is the mode of category you want to use? That is what is defined here. And then you have your sustain factor. Sustain factor means what? Sustain factor means it can be used to model the carbon dioxide emission. So as you know, like whenever we are driving a vehicle, there is a lot of CO2 emissions. So if you want to have some analytical or PowerPoint like your reporting in the BI perspective, that based on what are the carbon dioxide emissions emitted per vehicle basis. So this factor can be used in that case. Means of transport. So means of transport, this is not mandatory. So this parameter indicates what is the means of transport you are going to assign to a mode of transport. Okay. Generally we keep this blank. The relation is as just if you recollect, if you just note this, it will be helpful. So when you are creating your means of transport, you assign in your configuration your mode of transport. Okay. And when you are creating a vehicle resource, you always assign a vehicle resource to a means of transport. If you are assigning a vehicle resource to a means of transport, then automatically the mode of transport is also reflected there. So this is what the relationship is when you are basically creating your vehicle resource. Okay. Any question on the means of transport? Sorry, mode of transport?
Yeah, good. Good. Thanks.
Okay. So once you have completed this, the next part what will come is your if you come to resource, if you come to means of transport, here this is a means of transport. So what is the means of transport? So means of transport are essential. They're used to group the resources from the reachability and the planning perspective. Okay. So every mode of transport will have a linkage to a means of transport. So for example, the mode of transport will be road, but the means of transport maybe, for example, will be MTR1, MTR2. There can be multiple means of transport for a single mode of transport. So it depends on the attributes. Okay. So for example, if you are doing a transport in a plain region, you can use the means of transport MTR1. But if you are rising in a a very steep hilly region, then the mode of transport can be linked to MTR2. So the MTR1, MTR2 are the two different means of transport which has different attributes. So those attributes will actually differentiate your means of transport. And then once your means of transport is determined, this means of transport is linked to a resource. Okay. So this is the name of the description. Okay. This is a standard code which you can use. Okay. And this is the mode of transport. So this is the linkage. The means of transport is assigned to a mode of transport. And according to the mode of transport, the code changes. Okay. So this is one important thing. Second thing, resource class. So resource class means you have got multiple class of resource. That means, see, if you are using a truck or if you are using a locomotive, if you are using a rail car, every vehicle resource has a specific class. So that class will actually help you to understand like which are the type of resource that can be used for this means of transport. Because as I told you, means of transport has an assignment to resource. So that assignment to resource is actually done through the resource class. When I'll create a resource for you, you'll see that we assign a means of transport there. Okay. So in case you are driving, that is means of transport MTR1 is for a truck, then you specify resource class as truck. If it is for a rail car, you specify it as a rail car, something like that. Then you have a speed and distance. So the speed and the distance, basically it allows you to define the average speed and a low speed, medium speed and high speed. So that means this represents the average speeds when traveling in either in a developed area or highway or on a motorway. So based on that, the speed may vary. Okay. And the distance factor, what you see here, this distance factor actually defines the ratio between the distances to be considered and the straight line distance. So that is what we call as a distance factor. Please make a note, if you are using a GIS means basically this determines whether a geographical information system. So GI is actually used for the distance and the duration determination. That means how much distance and how much duration a particular truck will take to reach to a particular location. That is determined by a GIS. So if you are selecting the GIS here, if you are putting a checkbox here, that means the GIS will calculate the distance and the duration. So in that case, the duration will be calculated based on the speed. Okay. So in case you are not using GIS, no need to maintain speed. If you are using GIS, then the speed factor needs to be maintained here. Okay. So if you are using GIS, both the speed and this speed factor or the distance factors to be used. Okay. So that is, so in case a GIS tool is not used, the distance is calculated as a product of the straight line distance and the distance factor. That is what we call as a in case the GIS is not used, and the duration is actually based on the average speed entered. Okay. Then we come to the multi-resource. Any question till now?
So Viren, so every mode of transport we will link up with multiple means of transport.
Yeah, you can have a multiple means of transport, as I told you, because the attributes of different means of transport can be different for a single mode of transport. So for a single mode of transport, you can create multiple means of transport.
Okay. And this low speed and high speed and medium speed, so they would be given on an average, or like it's specific to any vehicle that we give here?
Yeah, it can be. It is based on a means of transport. That means those trucks or those things who are using a specific speed, you can specify the speed based on means of transport. Because ultimately, this means of transport is assigned to a truck resource. When you will be creating a resource, the actual truck resource, we need to assign this. So you need to know why we are creating multiple means of transport. If we have multiple means of transport based on speed, then you can do it. But please note, these speeds are only used in case you are using a GIS. But GIS is not used, this speed is not mandatory.
Okay. Thanks.
Then we have the multi-resource concept. So multi-resource is what? This flag defines whether a resource assigned to the means of transport represents a single resource or a multi-resource. Okay. So single resource means that means one physical resource instance. That means one truck with a specific license plate number. A multi-plate means the set of resources with equivalent properties. Okay. So when single resources are basically used to plan a company's own fleet of trucks and trailers, multi-resources are commonly used to represent those trucks for which you don't care about their license plate, but just the fact that you have used a truck of that kind. So that is what we call as a multi-resource. That means it can be used for multiple instances. That is what we call as a multi-resource. And if you are using a multi-resource, that means you are saying that you can use the truck for multiple instances. In that case, you need to specify how many times. If you are using unlimited, then this becomes 0. And if you are moving the checkbox, then system will ask you, okay, what is the number of times or number of instances you want to use this. So you can limit the number of resource instances by the number of individual resource, this one, by using this field. Okay. And then you have got lock multi-resource. So lock multi-resource means what? Lock multi-resource means it defines whether multi-resources gets locked during planning. That means if you are planning using a specific means of transport, and if you want to lock that particular means of transport while doing planning, then the lock multi-resource gets used. So if a multi-resource is locked, it can be used in 2 parallel planning sessions. And if it is not locked, the system will enable 2 or more parallel planning to be sessions to be continued. That is what the meaning of that. Okay.
Viren, any example in terms of multi-resource, lock
So
multi-resource?
for example, you have got 2 different transport planners. And if you want that 2 different transport planners can do the planning using the same means of transport, then do not put a check mark there. If you put a check mark, then one of the planner will not be able to plan with that means of transport while the other is planning it. So you don't want 2 parallel sessions to happen. In that case only that is used.
Okay. So eventually, if 2 trucks are to be used, then 1 truck needs to be locked. Then we have to put this check mark on multi-resource.
Yes.
Okay, so that 1
Correct.
truck would be used for another thing, and this would be continuing for our. Okay.
Yes. And then we have the additional properties. So additional properties means what? Additional properties means basically there are 2 types of resources. One is an active resource, one is passive. If you are putting a check mark for this one, that means it's not an active resource, but rather it's a passive resource. So passive parameter defines whether the resource is active or passive. If it's an active resource, it can move by themselves. If it is not, if a particular resource cannot move by themselves, it is called as a passive resource. So in case of passive resource, it has to be always be coupled to an active resource. So for example, trucks, trailers, okay, not trailers, rather I'll say truck. Truck is active resource, but if you consider trailer, trailer cannot move without a truck, right? So trailer is a passive resource. Then you have no direct load concept. No direct load means what? That means it defines where that goods cannot be loaded into the resource at hand. That means no direct load. So neither you can load the particular goods into the particular resource, nor any apart compartments can be assigned to it. So generally, no direct load is mainly used for vehicles such as tractors and locomotives, which cannot move by themselves. Okay. Similarly, this no capacity. The no capacity parameter prohibits using compartments for the resource. That means there is no capacity to be provided for that. Your own MTR. This defines whether resources assigned to this means of transport belong to your own fleet. So sometimes shipper has their own fleet, right? If it belongs to your own fleet, then this is the place where you can put a check mark. So this is just a descriptive parameter. The main planning relevant properties are expressed by the multi-resource parameters explained before. Then you have got a schedule MTR. Schedule MTR means that means these means of transport can be used for creating your schedules. If you recollect, last time we have created schedule, right? So if you want a particular means of transport to be used for schedules, then you can put a check mark there. GIS I have talked, default MTR, you know that if you want to provide a default means of transport, then you can use it, and sustainability factor you know. So any other question you have?
I just want this additional properties to be repeated once again. Just a small
Again,
confusion. Yeah, for
which
the passive. Why? Because I mean, we are. I mean, I'm actually getting confused in, say, for example, trailer and truck. But trailer cannot move with truck. So these are very less instances wherein we see. But then when it
okay.
comes to here, we have to think in that way. So that's why I'm sorry, but kindly
No,
if
no,
you
no,
correct.
no, that's okay. See, trailer, have you not seen any trailer? Trailer means the big chunks of where you get, where they carry the heavy vehicles, right? Uh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So they cannot move by themselves, right? You need to help them. 1 minute. You see, See, this is a trailer.
Yeah.
So if you see, this is a trailer, for example. This trailer, if you see, it cannot move by themselves, right? You need to have a truck within it, right? So that's why this is a passive and this truck is an active.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
So these all features are related to that. So for example, if you want to indicate a passive means of transport, then this has to tick mark. If you don't want to put any direct load to a means of transport which is passive in nature, then you have to put a tick mark. If this particular, if a particular shipper has their own vehicle, there can be two types of vehicle, right? Either you can have your own fleet or you can subcontract it from an external, right?
Mhm.
So if it belongs to your own fleet, then your own MTR. If you want to use a means of transport in your schedule master we saw last time, right? If you want to use a particular means of transport for which schedules are allowed, then this was the tick mark. And remaining GIS, I have told you that in case you want to know the distance and the duration determination from a specific service provider, then you need to put a checkbox here, and in that case, these speeds will be used. If you are not using GIS to calculate the distance and the duration, then not required.
Okay.
And means of and default MTR means well, it's a default if it's a default. And sustainability factor I've explained. That's it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so these all are based on the requirement of client. If at all he says like if his business involves all these things, then we have to go for the
Yes.
path. Okay.
Yes.
So if at
Okay.
all if
Yeah.
we are going with a client, then what we need to ask like do we need to ask like what does business transportation business actually include? Like he has got a trailer or he has got a truck or he has got a wagon. Like these are the
Yes.
kind of questions which we need to ask.
Yeah, these are the questions you have to use. See, client will not tell you whether it's a no capacity, no direct load.
Okay.
So you have to ask the question in a different way. Like for example, whether the fleet what you are going to use, is it your own fleet? Is it not your own fleet? Whether you want to connect your particular distance duration for any specific with any specific server. If they say yes, we have a server which provides the distance and duration, then automatically this tick mark will be there. Then you can ask them whether they want to map the carbon dioxide emissions in their BI reporting. If they say yes, then you have to put a check mark here. So this
Okay.
you need to understand and do it. And these some of the things you can take a default value, and then later on if you see any issue, then you can update it, because
Okay.
these things no one will tell you. Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So if you
So
want to create, yeah.
yeah, sorry, can you just give me an example for no direct load, the real time? Like,
So no direct load means what? No direct load means where you don't want to basically load the goods into the resource. So for example, tractors. For example, in the case of tractor, you don't want to put any direct load into the tractor, but rather into the compartments or something like that. Okay. So for that cases, the no direct load is option is used. Maybe you can see the F for help also. I don't know whether it's there. See, specifies whether freight units can be loaded directly into a resource that is assigned to this means of transport. If you select the checkbox, you cannot directly load freight unit onto the resource or into its compartments. Okay, that means no direct load means you cannot load the FU directly into the resource or into in this case you have to first assign the FU to the transportation unit and then assign this transportation unit to a resource. So that means if you don't want the FU to be loaded directly into this means of transport, okay. So for that you need to understand, like you need to ask the business whether you use the transportation unit, trailer unit concept also. Either says yes, then no direct load is what, because you're not directly loading into this, right? Or rather you are assigning to a transportation unit and then the transportation unit is assigned to the resource. So you're not directly loading the freight unit into the truck, okay. So that is what it is called. So that means you'll have a trailer, you load the freight unit into the trailer, and then the trailer will be linked with your freight unit. So you'll not be loading or rather to a truck. You'll not be loading directly the freight unit into a truck, but rather through the TU. So that's why it is not no direct load.
okay. So transportation unit we will create on top of the freight unit in case if we cannot load it
Yes.
directly.
Yes. You're right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to create your own means of transport, I'll create one means of transport for truck. This actually is our own means of transport, nothing much to be used here. So this is Y001. And then you have your, for C, we'll create another. If you see the code is different. For truck it was 31 and for C it is 11. Okay. So now once you have created this, the next part is that we'll create a resource. Okay. So first of all, let me explain to you how does a resource screen looks like. Before going to resource, I'll just show you one more configuration, which is called as a equipment type and equipment group. So if you see equipment type and equipment group. So in case you want to load a container, for example, if you want to load your products into a container, then you need to define the container type and container group, right? Because container types can have different things. Okay. So the main idea of this equipment type is to define certain properties once for a type, which then copied into a new resource. That means you can explicitly copy a resource. So for example, if I go into the group CN means container, and then I go to the container unit tab. It can be 20 feet container, 40 feet container, 80 feet container, and then you can directly go here. So here if you see, you can give a more more explanation here. For example, you can specify what is the packaging material. It means in case you are using a packaging material, you can use it. You can also specify the physical properties of a container. What is the gross weight? What is the volume? What is the capacity? What is the length? What is the width? What is the height? What is the unit of measure? Similarly, you can also specify what is the weight, capacity. If there is any interior length, width, height, you can also specify those. You can specify whether the container has a temperature controller mechanism, so ventilation is there. In that case, what is the minimum temperature, maximum temperature? So all these things you can specify here. Similarly, you can also specify the mode of transport for which this container can be used. I say I use a container for road, rail, and sea. So this gone for a container. So, but if you also go into vehicle groups, if you see the vehicle group, for example, if I specify a single vehicle group, okay, it's not there. I'll create a vehicle group for you, truck. So I say the vehicle group is YVH. Vehicle type, active truck to carry product. Okay. And then I use this vehicle group. It's like vehicle group means it's a transportation unit group. Same thing. Only thing is that this is for container, this is for a particular vehicle, for a truck. And then I can specify what are the different types of truck I have. So for example, I have this truck. So here you can specify what is the means of transport, what is the packaging material you can use, what is the capacity, all this information you can specify. Okay. So I will not use this particular vehicle type, but rather I just delete this. I go to new entries. So I can specify, okay, the vehicle. I'll show you where we ultimately use this vehicle type. So this vehicle type is used in the resource creation. Okay. So I tell it's a YV1 is a vehicle type. So vehicle type for truck. What is the means of transport? Y01, right? Because I'm using a truck, right? So for truck, I have used Y001. You can specify the tail weight or gross weight. You can also specify, in case you're using a rail car, you can specify the axle distance between the units and all these things. Okay. And then once you have done this, you can click on save. So this is my vehicle type and vehicle group what I have. Okay. And now I'll go and go for the creation of your resource master. So the main thing for all this is to create your resource. So if I go to logistics, transport, master data, resource. Tell me any question before I go into this resource master. Any question?
That's fine, Viren.
Okay. So before you go, so resource is very important because you know that without resource, your actual transportation will not work. So there are various attributes you need to consider when you are defining a resource. Okay. So let me first of all explain to you on an end user level. So if you see, every resource has a location or organizational unit. You can just click on the create button and then create it. Location means if you want to say, okay, this resource is to be used for a specific location and for a specific organizational unit, then only it makes sense. Okay. Or else you can keep this to blank. Then you can have to specify what is the resource type. That means resource type means what is the type of the resource which you can use. So resource type means there are various types of resource. Generally, we consider vehicle resource. So this calendar resource, this transportation units resource, these are different types of resources. Apart from the calendar resource means generally it represents the opening hour at a particular location. That is calendar. Calendar means for which hour the particular resource is available. So you have to specify opening hours for this. And then you have the handling resource. So handling resource means what? This resource is actually is a variant of the calendar resource, but there are additional time dependent constraints. For example, there are time dependent capacity constraints. Okay, that means how many number of open doors can be there at a warehouse. So that is type of a handling resource. Okay, but generally we always go for the vehicle resource. Okay, if I go into the display mode, so you'll see here a resource name, the one which you have created, vehicle type, vehicle group, you can give it in this. I'll show you that one which I've created. I will put it here. Resource class. So this resource class is coming from the configuration of your means of transport, right? Where you have specified, okay, for this means of transport, this is the resource type. So this is the most important field, means of transport. So this is the place where you can assign the means of transport to a resource. So if you compare my Excel, sorry, Notepad, I told you every means of transport has a mode of transport, okay, and every resource has a means of transport. So every resource has a means of transport, okay. So this is the time zone. So time zone means you have to specify what is the factory calendar, because obviously if it is a 5-day week, maybe a particular truck resource will not be available for transportation in the weekends, right? So that means it's based on a factory calendar. Dimension means when you come into dimension, then only the capacity comes into the picture. It's very important to know the capacity information, right? Because without knowing the capacity, you will not be knowing which truck to be used for which purpose. So when there are mass, volume, length, you can specify any type of dimension. If in case this is used, then you have to specify, okay, 500 ton is what the maximum capacity is. So this is time zone is for the operating zone of the location, and this factory calendar is how many days in a week it works. And once you maintain this, you come down. So all this information, time, means of transport, and all this information comes from the header level. This is the resource description you can put in. Then you need to specify what is the validity period of your resource. Okay. So validity period of a resource is important because maybe if you are using a truck which is valid for 1 year, then obviously for planning purpose, it is important to know that that truck is only valid for 1 year. After that, we cannot consider the availability of the truck. Maybe because the truck is going to wear out, or maybe it is going to be not to be used after a certain period of time. So for the resource validity is important, and the planning is entirely dependent on the resource validity period. If you are using a class and a role in the previous step, you'll get this information here. So resource class, you get it from the header level. Vehicle type and vehicle group, you get it from here. Owner, if you have a owner of this resource, you can specify, and that ownership can be an own resource, externally owned resource, or leased resource. You have to specify how the ownership is defined here. You can specify the lease contract, registration number. You can also specify like the name of the driver. If there is any default driver, then you need to specify the driver here. You can specify if there is any problem in the resource, like resource is damaged or about to expire, then you can specify a planning block. So planning block, you can configure it here. If you go back in this configuration, so there is a planning block. See, damage and reason to expire. If you want to add something, you can add it here. So this planning reason code is this one. Okay. Then you can also give some specific special instruction to the resource. Heavy vehicle resource, handle with care. Again, this is special instruction and this resource condition. What is the condition of the resource? Available for planning, not available for planning, or it is available but it's in break. So all this instruction and condition you can put it in your configuration as well. So this is my resource condition, and this is your special instructions. Okay. Any question till now?
Yeah, so within here we have the registration number and county and all those details, right? So if it's our own vehicle, we can enter all these details. What in case if we have to go for subcontracting or something?
Yeah, first of all, that depends whether you require it. Maybe for subcontracting, we require it. In that case, you need to get this particular information either through email or through an Excel template or something like that. So the master data team who will be creating the resource master, he needs to have handy with all the information.
Right. So every vehicle with a different registration number, we are going to create a resource for that.
Yes, because every vehicle has a unique registration number.
Oh, okay.
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 Then in case the resource is available for event management, you can put a checkbox. Event management means it's a module which is used for tracking and tracing. So if you want to track and trace where is your resource, what is the point of your resource, when the resource has left a particular premise after unloading, or when it is getting loaded, all this information if you require at a resource level, then you have to activate for event management. If the resource is owned by a shipper, then you need to put a checkbox here. Then this is the packaging material. So if you want to pack a material, or rather if you want to say, okay, this is the packaging material I want to use when I'm for a particular resource, it is used. So this pack material, this is mainly used whenever you are integrating with EWM. Okay. When you are integrating with EWM, in that case only this particular packaging material part is used, or else is not used as of now. And this means of transport gets copied from the header level. Capacity, mass is there, but if you want to add something more, you can add more here. This is a physical property. So physical property means here you need to specify what is the gross weight, volume, length, width, height, etc. This is the downtime. Downtime tab means what? Downtime tab means basically you need to specify for which period on a daily basis your resource is down. Maybe down means what? Maybe it's a planned down, or it's a whether the resource is not active for that particular time frame. So for example, between 12 to 1 o'clock, your resource is not active. So here you write validity period from this to this, and from 12 to 1, planned downtime. Qualification. So you can choose among the qualifications from the particular configuration path. What are the qualification criteria you want to associate with the resource? So for example, this is mainly used when you are using driver as a resource. Okay. So, and you need to check whether if the driver is used as a resource, whether the qualification is matching or not. So further, there will be a qualification type and qualification description. So you can directly create this here. So if you go back, you go here, you go to here. So this is basically your under attributes. If you click here, expand this, you can specify define settings for qualification. So I say, okay, my qualification is D1 and my value is driving efficiency. So if I have a driving license, that means my driving efficiency is 100%. Okay. So that is a qualification value. You can attach the associated equipment here. So that means if you want to specify that this truck will carry a specific container, then you have to specify what is the equipment category and the equipment details. And then you can also specify some alternative names here. Alternative names means you can select alternative names. Okay, so for that you need to specify some alternative categories. So you can go directly in the configuration and you can go define categories for alternative name. So you can specify, okay, based on the resource name and all, you give some names. So I'll show you when I will create one data for you. Okay. Any question on the resource part?
Viren, can you go to downtimes once? Yeah, you say like the so-and-so track is not available from one period to one period, right? So in that
Yes.
period, is there any other person or any other customer who could be able to book that?
No.
Or
So that means that will not be considered in the availability, right? So that because if that truck is not available and if any other truck is available, then the second truck will be considered during the planning.
right? Yes, yes, I got it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And that is
Any
something which
other?
you actually check mark in the initial in one of the concepts you have seen, right? So I don't remember it. Uh, uh,
So,
you
so
said that.
I'm not getting you. Can you sorry? Can you tell me again? What is the question?
I think there's a kind of disturbance in between. Uh,
Yeah, 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
yeah,
Yeah, tell me.
yeah. At the start of the class, we were actually discussing the concept of the locking and
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
that
So
is
if
one
a,
means of transport.
yeah,
Yes.
okay. So if we check it out over there, and is there kind of a relationship between the downtime and that? I mean, when any other customer not using this truck, I
So,
mean, this truck getting logged. So likewise.
no, that is a different thing. That is also, that is restricting you for doing any parallel sessions, right? It may last for 2 minutes also.
O- Okay.
But here you are specifying, okay, for 1 hour my resource will not there only. So the
Yeah.
concept of locking doesn't arise also.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll create two resources, one for truck, one for sleep. And let me see if I miss any other config. I think I've covered all. Resource special instruction, resource condition, block code. Yeah, these are mostly covered. So we'll see how to create a resource. So you directly go here. So I will create a resource, for example, y truck underscore test. So I'll give the resource type. I'll give the resource class. I'll click on create. So you can give the resource name, truck resource. You can give the vehicle group, so which I've created in the previous step. It is YVH and the vehicle type is YV1. My means of transport is Y001. So I'll give a time zone, CET. I'll specify the dimensions, mass. I'll specify factory calendar, specify capacity as 1000 tons. Click on enter. I can specify the validity period. For 1 year, for maybe for example. Okay, you can give some owner's name. You can specify this is your externally owned resource. You can give some registration special instruction. You can, so this, okay, owner, you don't have, sorry. So this 1000 tons which you are given, it can come, it will automatically come here. Plus you can add some specific volume also. You can specify some more physical properties if required, height, width, okay. You can mention something or you can keep it blank. I give a downtime from 2 days for 1 year. 2021. I give a downtime, it's from 12 to 1. Okay, and it's always a planned downtime. I give a qualification. So qualification type is a driving license, and qualification value is driving efficiency. If you want to give any equipment attached, I say okay, I attach a container, 40 feet container, okay, for example, if it is required, and I give some alternative names. For example, I give a resource name here, test, and I create the, okay. So this is for my truck resource, and I do it for a vehicle resource. So for that, the only change is in this one. It will be now vessel, and here the name is y ves underscore res. This means of transport is this one. Y002. So I give a time zone, I give the dimension, I give factory calendar, I give capacity, okay. Then I press enter. I give some name like vehicle, no, vessel resource. I give some transportation information here. And I just give the ownership as lease resource. I give some registration number. I can give some properties. I say it's temperature control, 19, maximum temperature is 20, and here is the degree Celsius. If you want to give something, you give or keep it blank. That's it. Okay. Any question?
It's
No,
fine.
Okay, good. So we have completed the resource part. So the next master data what we will see is your default route. Okay. So default route is again is not a mandatory data. So default route is mainly used when you want to have multiple stages in your freight unit. Okay. So if it really freight unit is the first object which is created in TM, right? When your transportation requirement is passed from ECC to TM. There you always see as a single stage. Single stage means it will always show from your shipping point to your ship to party, but you will not be able to see what are the ports or port information through which it has to pass. So default route means when you are breaking down your freight unit into multiple stages, that is what is called as a default route. Okay. So that means when you are cross-docking. So during cross-docking process, default routes can be used. Okay. So for that, there are specific routings which you need to specify here. So based on that, system will actually create that. Okay. So I'll just give an overview. Again, this is not a mandatory data, huh? Just I am trying to make it sure. So if you go to NWBC, if you go to master data, and here if you go down, default route, I go to first of all in the end user level. So if you see, this is the default route name, this is the description. You have to give the validity period of your default route. You can specify the document type of the default route, for which mode of transport you want to create the default route. And this is the transit duration. That means you can specify what is the transit durations per stage. Okay. That means how much time it takes from one location to another location. So these you don't have to do it, give the values here. It will be calculated automatically from the item level. Okay. So for here is the most important. Here you can specify what are the different locations. So I want to see, for example, when I'm moving my shipment from Los Angeles shipping point to my final customer, okay, I want the freight unit to be split into multiple stages. In that case, you have to put in what are the stages you want to do. See, so I put in two other stages, port and port. Okay, and you can specify what is the mode of transport which will be used for moving the transport from this to this, from this to this, and from this to this. So accordingly, mode of transport will get updated. In case you are using any schedule, you can also put in the schedule number. And this transit duration is basically per stage wise, how many days, how many hours, how many minutes it is going to take in order to basically move from one point to another point. Okay. Any question?
Yeah, so Viren, so for every source and destination combination, so we will create a default route.
Again, may not mandatory, but if you want to say, okay, if this is my shipping point and if this is my customer location and I know what is the predefined route through which my transportation will be done, then you can specify it. Because if you don't know the fixed departure default routing, then it does not make sense to create this data, because this information actually is provided by the carrier, right? As a customer, I want my good at a US. I don't know what will be the default route that my carrier will use, right? So in that case, sometimes this information is not used, but if you know what are the predefined routes which the carrier will use for transportation, then you can create the default route.
Okay, so would there be any scenario like where there could be multiple routes for ship to point to destination?
Yeah, that is, you want to say you want to create multiple routes
Yeah, I mean,
for a same shipping point and same ship to party.
yes.
So you want to change only the ports here, right? So maybe for the first default route port, it is going from A to B, and in the next default route it should be X to Y, right?
Right.
Yeah, that you can do it. But then in that case, you want to just think how much data you will have in the system. It will be a huge, right? So
right. I mean, say like to reach from point A to point B, they could go from A to C and C to B, or A to D and D to B, right? There could be two
yes,
possible.
yes. So in that case, that is also a way. Okay.
Yeah.
So see, this part is more from the reason why SAP has come up with a single stage is that, ultimately for the customer, he knows that my pickup point is this and my delivery is this. Now, whether it is going through port and all, that is the decision of the carrier, right? Because maybe he wants to load the optimizer, optimization cost, or maybe the planner wants to, consolidate at a particular port. So that's what his view is. So that's why, as I told you, that's why SAP has given by default the creation of freight unit single stage. But only if you want to do your planning based on multiple stage in your freight unit, then only the default route creation makes sense. Okay.
Okay. So in case if the route is having multiple stages and then the route gets assigned automatically to the freight order,
Not freight order, freight unit.
freight unit. Okay.
You can also, ask the freight unit to check if a default route exists, and if yes, assign it. That is also an option.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll show you now how to create a default route. So I'll copy this. So route is from shipping point to customer. This is a validity period. This is a valid to period. Okay. So suppose I want to use the default route type Z003. So from configuration, this mode of transport has come. Okay. So actually, it should be via truck. Okay, fine. That's not a problem. And then you put the data here. So in my case, my shipping point is, where is my shipping point? This one. It is going from shipping point to Bremen. And then from Bremen, it is going to Newark. And then from Newark, it is going to my customer location. Okay. And oh, what happens? Okay. So I say for covering the first step, it takes 2 days. For covering it, it's 1 day, and for the third is 1 day. And hours is, for example, 2 hours, 4 hours, and 1 hour. 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and 10 minutes. Okay, click on save. So if you see here, duration 2 plus 1 plus 1, 4, 2 plus 4, 6 plus 1, 7, and the remaining is 55. So this is what you get here. Okay. This is also done. Now the only thing is that where we see the configuration, because if you see the default route, it has 8003. So you go back. So you go back here, transportation network. I go into default route. Suppose see this one. So if Z003, Z003, okay. I change this to 1. My default route is, for example, 1. Okay, this is my road. So I'll just change this now. I'll remove the schedules also. See, the problem is, see, it did not get updated. That is the problem. Okay, so maybe you need to create a new route again, because the problem is, if after creating, if you change the mode of transport and all, it does not get updated here. Okay, so what you can do, maybe create a new route. No, what is my route number? 36 or 65? This is the one. Okay. Anyway, what you can do, you can create another new route. And now if you use Z003, or rather I'll use the road one. I'll not use this. Z003 I'll not use. I will use the standard default route, which is for road. And now you use the create one. So first is your shipping point. Click on create. Next is this one. Then is this one. Then is this one. Oh, I enter validity period. Okay. I use the mode of transport. This one is 01. Let me see. Okay. And lastly, just check the configuration. So this is a document type default. If you want to say which is your mode of transport, you can specify the mode of transport that will be passed on the default route. If you want to say, okay, my default route is to be used for my freight unit, trailer unit, rail car unit, container unit, all this stuff, then you have to specify this as default route as mandatory. If you okay. And then WDFD config means in case you want to do any screen enhancement or field enhancement, the development team will provide you this link. Okay. And finally, you have some strategies here. So this is my change controller strategy and deletion. That means if you want to delete your freight unit default route, how the system should behave, and in case you want to change any, if you want to propagate any change in your default route, how the system should behave. So for that, like this strategy part, I will show you later on, because the strategy part is type of a development, what you want to do. Okay, that's it. Any question you have?
Yeah, so when we're saying this is road default route, but when we look at the stops, it is also going to the seaports, right? It's not just the road.
No. This default. You mean mode of transport?
Yes.
No. See, mode of transport is which is the see. This is just used for default. That means on a header level, whether you want to create it for your for a stage which is starting with a road and then the midway is your ocean and all. Okay, that is what this mode of transport indicates.
Okay. It's
Because
basically
it is,
more of a
yeah,
horizontal.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And what is this rail car units? Viren?
So this one I will teach you later on. Although, okay, so these are different. So apart from the freight unit, you can also, like if you want to model your scenario of truck coupled to a trailer, then it's a trailer unit. If you want to model the scenario of a freight unit coupled to a rail car, then it's a rail car unit. If you want to model the scenario where freight unit is loaded with a container, that means the tracking unit is a container instead of a freight unit, then it's a container unit. Okay.
Okay.
So these are, as of now, for the basic, just understand the concept of freight unit, because this is a little bit on an advanced level. I don't want to confuse you now, but just note that this is mainly used if you want to couple or model your scenarios where apart from freight unit, you want to assign a container or a rail car or a packaging to your specific freight unit, then only these are required. As of now, don't do anything. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we stop here today, and tomorrow we'll continue. I'll complete then this one trade transport link. Tomorrow we'll start from. Actually I have an invitation tomorrow, so I'll start little bit late at around 5:30 p.m. CET. Only for tomorrow. Is it okay for you?
That's fine. So it would be as per Indian time, it
10.
9 o'clock or so.
10.
10. Night 10. Okay.
Okay. Okay, then see you. See you tomorrow.
Yep, sure. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, bye.